Welcome to the Mighty Emotions podcast. I'm your host, Giselle. I'm a certified emotions coach, and I teach you how to respond better to your emotions so you can feel better in your life. My mission is to show you how to work with your emotions to become more emotionally resilient. Your emotions are not designed to overpower you, they're designed to empower you. On this podcast, I share what our emotions are, how to understand them and work with them, and the tools you need to reclaim your power and get unstuck from emotional pain so you can find fulfillment in your life again. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's get into the episode. Hello again. How are you? How are you feeling? What are you feeling? How is life treating you? Right now, I am really in a great place overall. I really am in a great place overall. I've been being really intentional about taking care of myself, about nurturing myself, about trying to be proactive with my needs getting met versus waiting for them to get neglected for a long time and for me to go into an emotional spiral. Because that is a pattern that needs to break, seriously. Um, and maybe you can relate. Like maybe you're like, I don't pay attention to whether or not my needs are getting met, Giselle, and I just wait for life to feel difficult, for me to have a breakdown, for me to get burnt out, and then I'll do something about it. Yeah, it's not the best. We can be proactive about it and take a little bit more initiative and say, okay, what am I going to do to get my need for meaning met? And what am I going to do to get my need for connection met? And what am I going to do to get my need for leisure met? And just be more aware, conscious, intentional about all of it. So I highly suggest that you do that as well. And I think that segues great into the conversation we're going to have today because it does have to do with you taking care of yourself and learning to take care of yourself, as all of my work has to do with. But today I want to talk about this idea of people pleasing and people pleasers and why the conventional advice about, just set boundaries and that will be the answer is it's falling short, and it's not impacting people the way that I think it's intended to. um but it's not all about setting boundaries, right? And I don't identify as a people pleaser today. I would say that for a while I identified as a codependent person, um which is similar, and again, not an identity. And that's where I want us to start. Codependency, people pleasing, they are behaviors that we engage in an attempt to take care of ourselves, protect ourselves, preserve relationships. They're not an identity. It's not a stamp. This is who you are. You're this way because you were just born this way, and you were this way because this is just you. You are a people pleaser. You are a codependent. I think we really hang on to diagnoses and labels in our society because it makes us feel relief for a moment. And I stress for a moment. Um, and it helps us identify, okay, what's targeted for me and what's not for me, so there's a lot of things that are marketed to people who are people pleasers or identify as people pleasers, and it's not your identity. It is a behavior, and your behavior can be changed. You don't have to people please, right? And I think people say just set boundaries as if it's a really simple thing to do, as if like if we could all just set boundaries, we would all just be great. It would be wonderful. And it's a little too simplistic. I love simplicity. I love breaking things down, but it's not only is it simplistic in that it's just telling you like this is the one answer, but it's also incorrect that it's not the one answer. And it's also very vague and doesn't really get into, well, what is a boundary? How do I set a boundary? What does that look like? So there's all of that to kind of consider. And what I really want to get across today is that, yes, setting boundaries are important. If you have a pattern of behavior where you focus on other people's needs to the detriment of your own well being, which is how I define people pleasing behavior. If you have a pattern of behavior of denying what you feel, suppressing what you feel, keeping it all in, while you simultaneously try to pour into other people, be there for everybody else. If anyone calls you, drop everything, you're there. But when you need something, you can't really show yourself the same kindness or compassion. That's kind of what I consider people pleasing behavior. And the solution to that, while it sounds like it's boundaries, I want to talk about the deeper elements of it. Because what with any behavior, changing our behavior, first of all, it begins with changing our thoughts. So let's start there. You are having thoughts that are motivating you or driving you to engage in people pleasing behaviors. And underneath these thoughts, you're having emotions and feelings that are causing you discomfort and dis-ease and dysregulation in your body that you're ignoring. And underneath those emotions and feelings are needs that aren't getting met. But coming back up from that, those needs can't get met because we're not taking the actions to get those needs met. So it really all works together, which is great because when we understand how it works and we understand how to work with it, we can get the results we want in life. But again, we have to work with each element and each part. And ending a pattern of people-pleasing behavior is about learning new skills, not just the skill of setting boundary, because that is a skill. It is an art and a science, right? Because we have to learn what kind of boundaries and how to set the boundaries. And we have to think about the other human being that's receiving these boundaries of ours. And we have to think about, is the boundary that I need to set with them or is it with myself? And getting clear on where are my limits and what can I tolerate and what makes me comfortable and what makes me uncomfortable. All of that goes into setting boundaries. When I work with my clients, setting boundaries is like one of the last things we do, because if you don't first know how to hold space for yourself and be honest with yourself about what you're feeling and move through the emotions that are going to come up when you attempt to set boundaries and when you attempt to do new things and when you attempt to change something, then it's all going to fall apart. It's all going to fall away. And you're going to be left with a pattern and you're going to think, well, this is who I am because I can't stop doing this. I can't stop behaving in this way. But what's driving the people pleasing behavior are the thoughts that are preventing you from getting your needs met, which are bringing all these emotions to the surface that you're not dealing with. And the cycle just continues and continues and continues. So, yes, we want to set boundaries, but we first have to learn the skill of processing, integrating, and resolving an emotional experience. An emotion is a physiological sensation that's just temporal. It's coming up for a reason. If we know how to address it and work with it, it's done. We resolve it and we move forward. If we don't know how to address it and resolve it and integrate it, then it just keeps cycling back around or it just kind of lingers in the background and it creates all this dis-ease within us that we try to find escape from, we try to find relief from, we try to do these things to avoid and distract how we're actually feeling. And people pleasing is one of those behaviors. So if I feel uncomfortable in a situation and I don't know how to navigate my discomfort, I'm going to default to behaviors that feel safe and that lead me to feel like I will be safe, right? We people please because we think that it's going to keep us safe from harm in relationships. We think if I do this, they won't be upset at me. If they're not upset at me, they won't leave me. If they don't leave me, then I'll have connection. Because what we really need is connection. And we don't understand that we can get connection in so many ways. That one person rejecting us, we can process the sadness of that experience, close the door on that, close the door on that person and that experience, and be free from that experience. But when we don't know how to process it and close the emotional loop, we start to see that person as a representation of all people. And all of a sudden, that one person who rejected us becomes everyone. Everyone's going to reject us. So I need to keep everyone happy. I need to please everyone. That's the subconscious programming that's running when we are people pleasing and engaging in codependent and people pleasing behaviors. It's really about us not knowing how to intercept that initial experience that created that belief that we have to protect ourselves, that we have to behave in this way in order to take care of ourselves. We didn't realize that that emotion, that sadness that came up when that rejection happened or that abandonment happened or whatever that relational rupture was, we didn't realize that we had no one to teach us how to process that. and how to leave that within the experience, that single experience. It was that person who did it. It was your mom who did it. It was your dad who did it. It wasn't that everyone is like that. It's not that that is a representation of everyone, right? When you can really process that experience and isolate it, you can move forward. You can be free to move forward. You can say, okay, rejection sucks, but not everyone's going to reject me, right? Abandonment sucks, but not everyone's going to abandon me. And I know how to process it if it does happen. And I know how to not make it about me and not make it mean that something's wrong with me. And I know that I can still be safe on the other side of it. How do I know this? Because I know how to process the emotions that arise so that I don't create beliefs that prevent me from taking action that's going to be supportive and helpful for me. Instead, when I don't process it, I create these beliefs that I need to protect myself, that all people are dangerous. Like my worldview is completely different when I don't process my emotions from when I process them. That's really what I want you to understand. Your people pleasing behavior is a result of a worldview that was developed when you had a painful relational experience that was never processed, integrated, and resolved. It's not you, it's not your identity, it's not who you are. It's a behavior that you don't know how to stop because you don't know how to process those emotions. And so, setting boundaries to me is so valuable, but it's something that comes naturally when we know how to take care of ourselves and when we honor ourselves and we're compassionate to ourselves. Like, if I treat myself good, I'm not going to tolerate you not treating me good. Like, if I take care of myself, I'm not going to tolerate someone who isn't willing to take care of me. It starts with you. It starts with you processing that experience that left you with those stories. It starts with you honoring what you honestly feel and taking care of you and holding space for you and your humanity and knowing that these emotions are normal. There's nothing abnormal about you feeling this way about this situation. It's completely valid. And we're not carrying this with us for the rest of our lives. We need to process this. We need to integrate the information, let our body process that energy, get clear on the story we're going to tell ourselves from now on. Get clear on what actually happened. What were the actual facts of that? Are we projecting this into the whole world, onto everybody else? Or do we know how to have that experience be that experience and allow ourselves to experience new things and collect new evidence and create new stories? When we get stuck in any kind of protective behavior, any kind of trauma response, it's because we never close the emotional loop, and it's just cycling over and over and over, and everyone becomes a surrogate for that person that hurt us, and every situation becomes that situation that happened in the past. So you can set boundaries, I guess. I mean, when I set boundaries from a place of trying to protect myself, they weren't the kind of boundaries I set today. And they didn't lead me to having really any kind of self-confidence. They didn't lead me to having any healthy relationships or knowing how to repair after conflict, or it just, they didn't serve me, those type of boundaries. To set those kind of boundaries, it didn't serve me. It pushed people away. It kept me disconnected. It kept me isolated because at the core of it, I wasn't dealing with me. I wasn't dealing with what was showing up with for me, and I wasn't allowing myself to grieve and process and integrate and resolve the past so that I could leave it in the past, so that I could be present, and so that I can think, okay, the future is a blank slate. We can go and experience we can go and have many experiences, right? The the possibilities that open up for us when we haven't decided that this is how people are and this is how the world is, right? Things really open up for us when we're like, you know what? That was a shitty experience, but because I'm at peace with that, I've processed that, I've made peace with that experience, and I've isolated it to that experience and those people. Wow, there's so many other options. There's so many alternatives. I can just let people show me who they are. I can collect new evidence, and that experience has left me with new knowledge of what kind of behavior I'll be more mindful of and what kind of signals I need to be aware of rather than ignoring, right? What are the red flags that I ignored before that I won't ignore now. Like, it gives us so much wisdom. And when we can do that, then we can say, you know what, this doesn't work for me. And there's no, you know, drama to it, right? There's no rage behind it. There's no uneasiness about setting that boundary because we trust ourselves and we know ourselves well and we treat ourselves well and are nourished. So if you struggle with people pleasing behavior, this is something that I'm more than happy to support you with. Ending those patterns of behavior, reconnecting to yourself, understanding that that isn't who you are. It's a pattern of behavior that you need to break, and it's possible to break. I've done it. My clients have done it, right? When you learn how to process, integrate, resolve, and you know how to work with your emotions, your feelings, your thoughts, then you can take really, really aligned action. And that's going to lead you to the things that you want, the connection that you actually want, right? Instead of focusing on, well, what if I lose this person? You can focus on, well, what if I learn how to find connection in the right places? Like, we're going to work together and shift everything. We're going to unpack it all. You're going to see it from an entirely new, more empowered perspective. Why? Because you're going to understand your needs. You're going to understand the underlying signals, and you're going to know, okay, I don't need to behave in this way. I can be intentional about how I live my life and intentional about how I behave. That this is just something that I just need to learn a different way of responding. And you work through, well, together we work through all the things that are preventing you from choosing a new way and responding in a new way. We clear all of that. We resolve all of that. And what you're left with is knowing that you are in alignment with yourself and that you can trust yourself to make good choices. And the irony is that the more we know how to do this, the less boundaries we need. Like, boundaries are really like, I can't handle this. I can't tolerate this. This is too much for me. And it stems from a lot of unprocessed prior experiences that leave us with beliefs that cause all this unease for us. But when we can resolve all of that and we have more ease and our needs are met, we don't have as many boundaries. Like, we have our hard stops for sure. Everybody does, because we love ourselves and we're able to honor what, what we're tolerating, what we're not tolerating. But we're not trying to protect ourselves from the world. We don't feel unsafe. We have that internal stability and that internal safety that allows us to just feel more peace and more fulfillment. And that's what leads us to prospering in our lives. And that's what I help my clients do. And that's what I hope that I help you do, even with just this podcast, right? If you'd like to learn more, send me a message. Details will be in the description box below. I would love to work with you. I would love to help you. If people pleasing is a pattern of behavior that you want to stop tomorrow, I can't promise it'll be done in 24 hours, but I can tell you that my clients experience rapid change, rapid transformation, even when they've been stuck in a pattern for years and they've tried other methods to resolve it, right? When we walk you through the Mighty Emotions method and you actually gain these skills, setting boundaries is the least of your worries because you won't be people pleasing. You'll be honoring yourself. And I would love to help you do so. And so I love you for listening. I can't wait to speak to you on another episode. Again, let me know what you thought of the episode on my socials. Message me, send me an email at mightyemotions@gmail.com, and I will speak to you next time. Be well and be gentle with yourself. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. It would mean so much if you could subscribe, leave a review, share with your friends and family, and let me know what you think by going to my Instagram at mighty_emotions and connecting with me and letting me know what you loved about today's episode. It really means a lot that you support this podcast, and I love coming to you each week with a new episode. So be sure to subscribe, let me know what you think, and take care of yourself.